Hashem. Tremendous akaras hatov to the Lekutei Moharan, Rav Moti, and the Torah's Chaim and Breslov Research Institute that were able to go into these chai klalim that they lay out the entire way of learning Lekutei Moharan with absolute clarity for the English-speaking public. And Baruch Hashem, we're going through these principles. Oh, thank you. Is that yours? You sure? Thank you. Amen. That makes it that we could really get involved and really understand the ore of the tzaddik, because what we're really doing here is that if we're learning Lekutei Moharan properly and we're davening to Hashem to really do that, is that we're not just learning nice ideas. Rebbe Nachman is also exceptionally intellectually brilliant. So for the academically intellectual mind, we're getting stimulated. Like, wow, what an amazing connection. That's not the main nakuda. The main nakuda is that we're finding the light of the tzaddik, and the light of the tzaddik is an ore of elikus. The light of the tzaddik is that the tzaddik is shining and reflecting from a very high place. And we're finding this light, we're finding this energy inside the Torah. So if we go into the Torah properly, then we fill ourselves with light and inspiration and excitement and beauty. So this is like the way in. This is a way to get the ore. You know what I'm saying? We all want the ore. We want that ore. You know, the world can be a dark place. And you want, the Torah is called Oiraisa. The Torah is ore. Ner mitzvah, v'Torah, or. The mitzvahs are called candles and the Torah is called light. So if you learn the Torah properly, some Torah has a little bit of light, some Torah has a lot of light. It says that the deeper into Penimius HaTorah you go, which is the inner dimension of Torah, the more light there is. Now sometimes, let's make this simple by way of analogy. Let's say you meet somebody on a date. So, the first date, they're a little bit like, maybe closed off a little bit. You don't feel that they're revealing their light to you. You know what I'm saying? Just like, okay, how you doing? Fine. Okay, so how many siblings do you have? Yeah, 2. Hey, you want to say anything else about that? Yeah. It's like, they're a bit dark, you know what I'm saying? Because people are nervous, they haven't opened up yet. The opening up is the revelation of light. Next thing you know, you're a few dates in, and all of a sudden you see like there's a light emanating from this person. That all of a sudden the girl is like revealing her inner wishes and desires, and you're like, I never knew how much, I didn't see that on the first date. Even though, was it there? Of course it was, but the light was being, concealed a little bit. So the more you go into the penimius, the more you go into the inside of that person, the more you're meeting their essence, the more light that you're receiving. And it could be you go on a date and they just feel like they want to really share who they are, and you're like, wow. Like you're almost blown off your seat. You hold onto your tzitzis to make sure like you don't fall, because I never saw so much beauty. Like you're amazing. You have so much in you that I never knew about. Even though I was there the first date. But I wasn't able to see the penimius. I wasn't able to see who you are, so the light was concealed. Once we're now revealing the light, I see there's something big here. So the deeper into what's called penimius HaTorah, Kabbalah, Chassidus, Ramchal, Vilna Gaon, we're seeing this light. We're going in. And that's really where we're journeying to. We want the light. We want the ore. So that's what these chai principles, these chai klalim are helping us to do, is understand how to receive this light. So far, so good. And Baruch Hashem, for the English-speaking public, we have this translated in English. And we mentioned yesterday, we started principle 1, and we said that principle 1 is really the klal, is the principle that sums up all the principles in learning the Lekutei Moharan, which is minei ubei. Minei ubei means every single thing that you need in the journey of finding the ore is in the Torah itself. in the Torah itself. You don't need a journey outwards to find it. It's in the Torah itself. It was all implanted there. Even another Torah in Lekutei Moharan you don't need to go to. That's Minei Obey. And we're going to be coming back to Minei Obey. Principle number 2. L'shoina HaKodesh. Rebbe Nachman was extremely precise in his wording, but tachlis hadiktuk. As Rabbi Avram Bar Nachman quoted Rebbe Nosson, the felis ubemishkel gadol. The felis ubemishkel gadol, with tremendous precision and engineering. I like that translation. Even in places where it seems like the Rebbe is being overly verbose or superfluous, there's a reason and purpose for every word and expression. Meaning, when Rebbe Nachman says something, you take it very seriously because those words are specific. When you speak, are you always measuring every word that you say? The lawyer in the room is like, not really. Like, we just say what we need to say.
Throw everything, just hope something sticks.
Exactly. Whereas Rebbe Nachman, when he says it, it's what it is. Imagine if we spoke that way. People would take you much more seriously. When you said something, that's what it was. It's actually very beautiful and refreshing, I find, when you speak to people who are very good with their language. Like when they say something, they're very deliberate with their speech. It gives so much weight to speech, because if that word was said, or even if that concept was said, it was said.
Rosh Hashiva.
Rosh Hashiva for sure. Measured, calculated. Similarly, in places where it appears that the wording is short and terse, or that something is lacking or missing, there's an explanation to this apparent lack within the Torah itself. Meaning you think that something feels like it's missing, like it's ani b'makom echad. It feels like very, like poor, like there's nothing there for me to grab onto. There's a reason for that. We will see that very often it's more difficult to understand the Rebbe's intent when he's short and terse than when he's lengthy and verbose. I don't know, why didn't you say something, Rabbeinu? Why did you withhold information here? You would think if you're just short and terse, like, you got to the point. When you speak to people and they don't get to the point, like, what's the bottom line? Like, cut to the chase? Mm-hmm. So usually that helps me understand. But when Nachman is short and terse, sometimes like, why didn't he say something here? I feel like more needed to be said. So that, remember, go back to Minei Obey. Within the Torah itself, you can circle back and find things in the Torah itself that would indicate why here he's not saying so much. And use the Torah itself to guide you through understanding that. This is like a super sefer. This is next level. The incredible precision of the Rebbe's wording is so important that Rebbe Nosson writes in the introduction to the sefer that it really would be proper and fitting to write ayin heitev or duk after each sentence. Now, you understand, every sentence, ayin heitev, this comes up in Sfarim. Look well into the matter. Ayin heitev, look well into the matter. I mean, there's more here than meets the eye. Or doik, you'll see comes up in all over the place, in Marsha and everywhere. Doik. Like, darshinim and timtzakarov. Like, look, I know you may not understand exactly what's going on right now, what I just said. Said the Marsha, but, look further into the matter, and you will really know what's going on. You'll really realize that what I said is nifla. But you just need to think about this a little bit.
What's nifla?
Nifla means awesome. Nifla.
Is it like from the root, like
Pella. Pella with an aleph. Umafli lasais. Hashem, that you put my neshama, like the Ramah says, in my body. Could you imagine that my neshama is sticking in my body? It's in there. It's an amazing thing. There's all sorts of. That's nifla. My body is physical. My neshama is spiritual. Where is it? Like, how does it stick in there? And I'm identified with my body? That's nifla. That's why every single time that you go to the bathroom, when you come out of the bathroom, we make the bracha of Asher Yatzam. We say a mafli laser. Hashem, it's nifla. My body is nifla. Both that everything works the way it works. Chalalim, chalalim. Nikavim, nikavim. But it's also nifla that I can have awareness of the awesomeness of my body and that my neshama is in my body. That's an amazing thing. Nifla. So, Nachman's words are nifla. The nifla. Is there a difference between the Torahs that are written b'Lashon Rabbeinu and those that are not? Certainly. In the Torahs that are Lashon Rabbeinu mamish, meaning in Lekutei Moharan, there's certain Torahs that Rebbe Nachman mamish wrote, and there's others that Rebbe Nachman wrote, his main student. In the Torahs that are Lashon Rabbeinu mamish, it says, Efshar l'dakte kamoi b'mikra. All the literature guys are like, I don't know, no, this is like a little bit much for me. Efshar l'dakte kamoi b'mikra mamish, like a chumish? Come on, come.
What does this mean?
That you could be precise within the wording. Like that word was chosen. Like Bereshis, Bara, Elokim, Eis, Hashemayim, the Eis Ha'aretz. What's the Eisin doing there?
Right.
The Essen. You could be medaktek on that.
Right.
But I could be medaktek mamish kamoi b'mikra. Certainly. Okay. Now, one of the nekudas here, we're not saying the Lekutei Moharan is chumash. It's very important. Nobody is making that mistake, but we're just saying something that we mentioned before is that Rebbe Nachman we spoke about this yesterday, I believe, that the light that Moshe Rabbeinu that came to the world, and that Moshe Rabbeinu was the other half of the soul of Bilam, and that Moshe Rabbeinu was the side of good, pure good, and therefore the Torah was coming through Moshe Rabbeinu, this amazing ore that came through. That this ore that came through is a very pure ore. And we said that ore went to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So the language of the Zohar, many say that, when you learn Torah Sheba'al Peh, if you learn Derech Hashem, it speaks about the difference of reading Tanakh. When you read Tanakh, just the words themselves make you holy. Even if you don't understand them. The words themselves are mikadesh. Which is not the case when it comes to just opening up a Gemara. If you don't know what that means, then it doesn't do anything. Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, has to be something that I understand. I'm in the game. It's the oral tradition. It has to be something that you're part of the game. You're talking about it. You understand it. It's a language you understand. There's an exception to that. The Zohar. The Zohar HaKadosh, we have a transmission and a tradition that just reading the Zohar, even though the Zohar is Torah Sheba'al Peh, that reading the Zohar, many Sfardim, they just read Zohar, like they're like kids between Minha and Aravit. They just like, okay, Zohar. They just read the Zohar. Many people, for many years in our tradition, just read Zohar. Because the words themselves are mekadesh. There's a light in Rabbi Shimon. That light went to the Arizal. That light went to the Arizal. And that light went to the Baal Shem Tov. And that light went to Rebbe Nachman. Yeah.
It's reading Zohar, like reading Tailings, you just do it any time and the words are just incredibly holy.
Yes.
Even if you don't understand it, right?
Even if you don't understand it. Now, if you have the choice of just reading the Zohar all day and not understanding it, or going to your morning Seder with your Rebbe that helps you understand Gemara, go to your morning Seder with your Rebbe that helps you understand Gemara. This wasn't a plug here. I'm not,
It's a Shabbos thing. Read some Zohar.
Yeah, and plus, there's other times.
And review your Gemara.
That's right.
Are there other svarim that we hold like this, other than
So, probably what you're going to ask me is, meaning this is Breslovers saying this.
Right.
The Chabadniks say the same thing about the Tanya.
Well, both people can have the or no.
So, So, they say in Chabad, Masorah, that the Alter Rebbe would spend an entire week crying and fasting when he decided to put either a word in the Tanya with a vav or without a vav. Do I say v or do I leave out the vav? Meaning, in other words, that we're talking about Baruch Kodesh Mamish. We similarly see the Vilna Gaon speak about the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim when he says it's betachlis hadiktuk and that you could go and every word was there for a specific reason.
It's like mikra.
You're right. It doesn't, exactly. Like for sure, like a rishon. For sure, like a rishon. And I don't think I've seen this language anywhere else. Kemikra. And it's important to note, we're not saying this is mikra, but we're saying that there's a diktuk. There's a diktuk, ledakte kamoy b'mikra, that you can make dikdukim. Oh, welcome, Chevera, there's coffee here. Like, that you could be medakte kamoy b'mikra, which means that the precision of the word choice was exceptionally deliberate. Exceptionally deliberate doesn't describe what mikra is. Hashem is more than exceptionally deliberate. But it's kamoy. It's also kamoy. It's not mikra mamish. It's kamoy. There's a chaf hadimyan. There's a dimyan to it. It's not it, but it's like it. This does not take away from the Torahs that were transcribed out of Nasan, which also require tremendous precision. At the very least, we can be medactic and careful with them like the Lashon of the Gemara or Rishonim. Which means this is not a regular sefer, this is a sefer that's exceptionally deliberate. Exceptionally deliberate. So it's beautiful, they go into Lamaisa after each point. After becoming familiar with the roadmap, you should always be looking slowly and carefully at each word. Does something stand out to you, the reader? Is it an unusual wording? Is this a wording that's used in Tanakh or Chazal? Is the Rebbe bringing back a word that was used earlier in the Torah, etc.? Meaning, if you see something, like they say in an airport or something, if you see something, say something. So if you see something, say something. Yeah, Natan.
So I thought that we were not, according to Principle 1, we were not supposed to bring in what's called outside sources. But here it's saying use outside sources for wording.
No, it means, did I see this word somewhere else in Tanakh or Chazal? Meaning, is there something here that's like cluing me into what Rebbe Nachman is talking about?
Just like more like the principle of it, not necessarily like
the principle
using
of it.
What that pasuk talked about.
The principle of it, and he's going to tell us in one of the other principles that one of the important things that I need to know is that if there's things that I literally don't know, that doesn't go against Minei Ubei. I'm allowed to get basic concepts from outside Lekutei Moharan that I can help me understand just the basics in Minei Ubei.
Is the difference that if you see an idea and then it reminds you of something, that's like Minei Ubei saying don't look at that. But if he's quoting the line, it's like, okay, this comes from somewhere, then we should look at that, and that's not.
Yes. Minei Ubei means, let me not think, I think the example used yesterday was like Klipas Noga. So Klipas Noga, like, the first thing that I think about is the Tanya. The Tanya is replete with very clear mahalach and what Klipas Noga is. So I want to think, Klipas Noga, let's open up the Tanya, and let's understand Klipas Noga. So Minei Ubei is pointing out, if Rebbe Nachman mentioned Klipas Noga, everything that I need to know about Klipas Noga, at least from that gavan, from that shade of Klipas Noga that Rebbe Nachman wants to speak about, because a diamond has many facets, I could find out through connecting the ideas within the Torah itself. It's like a self-enclosed system, which also is so empowering, because it means once you can get the roadmap and the principles of the Torah, you have all the information. So it's empowering for a beginner also learning Lekutei Moharan, because he doesn't have to think like, there's so many things. I never learned the Tanya, how will I ever know about Klibas Noga? You don't need to know that. Once you have everything in the Torah itself, use the Torah and like almost dig up more gold from the Torah itself. Principle number 3 is a very good one. Dugmois v'mashalim. Examples and mashalim, analogies. Generally, when a person brings in an example or an analogy, they're not doing it bidavka. Bidavka means they're not doing it like deliberately and specifically. If I want to give an example, like, oh, I'm so hungry, like, oh, I'm so hungry, like that time that I went to like, Tokyo Sushi and I ate the whole place. So you wanted to like use that as the example of like the hungriest you ever were. So you weren't necessarily being specific, like that summed up everything. You probably could have used another example of that other time that you went to, Pitmaster, wherever you went. Whatever your inyan is. Rather than just bringing an analogy or example that helps to understand the point being made. However, in Lekutei Moharan, every example or mashal is bidafka. It's exactly what is being said. Of the many examples that the Rebbe could have chosen, he always uses an example that has a very specific connection to that particular Torah. If someone will put the effort into learning the pasuk or Ma'amar Chazal the Rebbe brings as an analogy or example, and really understands it on a more than a superficial level, he'll be able to see the special connection. He'll be able to see that the reason why Rebbe Nachman brought this particular proof over all others. He'll be able to see the deep connection from the pasuk to the Torah, which means when we see examples that are being brought throughout Lekutei Moharan, that was the example. And you might think like, oh, there's probably like 5 other chazals he could have brought that also speak about that. So, if that's what goes through your mind, think to yourself, well, why didn't he bring those other 4? Why did he dafka bring this one? This allows for a lot of be'in. And also allows for a lot of space for a real Talmid Chacham to dig up a lot in Lekutei Moharan. Principle number 4. Lamaisa. Spend time looking up each dugma or mashal in its original context in which it was said, and see how it fits into the psukim and prakim around it. See the Rashi, other standard commentaries. Now go back into Lekutei Moharan and contemplate how the example is connected to the Torah in a deeper way. This is something that L'Tam B'Torah also put out, which is just nifla, that they put out all of the psukim and the chazals on the Torah. Meaning, if you see a Torah, if you see that Chanukah is lahoidus lahal, you see something there, so go into the Gemara where it was found. Go into the original text. There's a pasuk that's brought. The whole ma'aseh with Asa and his legs. Go back into the original text, and from there, just see Rashi, see the Mitzudas, see what does the Sforno say. Open up a Mikras Gedolos on the pasuk, and then once you have a full brilliance of what that verse was talking about, then take that back into the Torah. This is where it's a beautiful thing: is that this is part of me neobei, is that I could go into the original context of a pasuk, of a Gemara, see the entirety of it, and then it will help illuminate more the Torah itself. Okay, principle 4. Okay, this is a very deep thing. And he says it's also deep. He didn't need me to say it's deep. The way the Torah was revealed and living the Torah is intrinsically connected to the learning of the Torah itself. Okay, let's see what this means. This rule is very deep and broad, and we're not attempting to cover its entire depth, but rather only to touch the very edge of it. The way in which the tzaddik acquired his Torah is by fulfilling the advice, avodas, and writings that are found in that very Torah. This is awesome. Meaning, how did Rebbe Nachman reveal Tinyana Beis? He got to that place that he was so deep in Haidah, he was so deep in the Shashum of Olam Haba, the pleasures of the world to come. He was so deep in understanding circulation. He was so deep in things that were going on with his tuberculosis and his lungs, that the Torah came out of him. Meaning, by living the eitzes and the advice of the Torah, he revealed it. He became the Torah. and then the Torah came out of his mouth. You get what I'm saying? By living, Lekutei Moharan is all about how to live as the greatest human being possible. You got to get like Gary Brecker, personal optimization. You want to biohack, how the human being works? You can get Gary some Lekutei Moharan. This is literally how to optimize a human being. Literally. And appreciate that Rebbe Nachman was optimizing himself to such a level that the Torah started coming out of his mouth. Now when you're living the Torah, so in a certain way we're almost going backwards. We're learning the Torah in order to then live it, but then it becomes like a cycle. Because as I live it, I start learning it. That's what's really being said here. And then once I get that, then I see deeper what Rebbe Nachman is really trying to get me to be doing and thinking and feeling. And then once I'm living it more, I could really understand the Torah more. So I just go deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah, Daniel.
Are we going to get a shtickle into the Yemei Chanukah today?
So to understand Yemei Chanukah,
We're going to do this first?
we have to understand this. To really get it. This is the framework. Through his fulfillment of these avodas, he attained their levels, their essence and their panemius and all the things related to them. It is in this way that each individual will be able to grasp and attain them. Therefore, when we come to study his Torah, in order to understand more, first, based on our initial understanding, fulfill the avodas of this Torah with dedication and effort according to each individual's ability to understand and accomplish. If Rebbe Nachman says you should be appreciative and say thank you, then let's try already to be people that are saying thank you. If I'm so narcissistic that I can't say thank you for anything, I'm going to have a hard time chapping this Torah. But as soon as I could become somebody that says thank you, this Torah all of a sudden starts coming into focus for me. It is from this fulfillment of the ideas within the Torah that we will merit to grasp the panemius of the eitzes and avodas revealed to us, similar to the way in which Rabbeinu was initially zoicha to attain the depth of the Torah through his practice of the particular eitzes and avodas encompassed within them b'shleimus, completely. Now look at this, number 2. Even at the time that the tzaddik was revealing the Torah and gave it over to his talmidim, he was fulfilling the Torah while revealing it in a wondrous and special way. This fulfillment of the avodas is revealed to us by observing the practices and conversations that took place around the time when he gave over that Torah. You should know Breslov is famous for having tremendous, clear transmission of all of the time, date, place, all the academic bookkeeping, where the Torah was said, who was there, what city it was in, what year it was, what was happening in the world during that time, what was the socio-political climate of the world that was going on, because all of that was relevant to as this Torah was coming out. And therefore so much of that is that if you see similar patterns in the world, similar socio-economic, political, climate times, and you realize that there's a Torah that is touching that, and you go into that Torah, it's like you can generate the avodah. Rebbe Nachman's bringing down the avodas for those times. So understanding all of the kind of background information, that's why I look at this, my dear friend, that Reb Chaim Kramer should be healthy and well. When he put in the English translation,
Oh, wow.
yeah, this is next level.
The whole English translation.
The whole thing. When they put in this edition, so look on page 67, Reb Chaim Kramer always will mention, in the beginning, usually he puts as like the introduction to the Torah. Rebbe Nachman gave this lesson on Shabbos Chanukah, the 28th of Kislev, December 17th, 1808. So it's detailed. Detailed. He says the people that are there, and that somebody had been delayed in Nemirov for Shabbos and didn't make it there, and then Rebbe Nachman added another part when he came. And the whole Torah was in the context of him making his journey from Lemberg to Breslov, and the and the doctor is advising him to be careful on this journey, and that he made it, and this was like his own Mizmor LaTodah, this was his Korban Todah that he was giving to Hashem and making it safely to Breslov because his tuberculosis had gotten very bad, that everything is in context. So you want to put the whole story, the whole picture. Yes, Dan.
Let's say you don't speak English. How do you get that context?
So in Hebrew, they have it in Hebrew.
There's in the original Lekutei Moharan, or no?
They have them in like Chaim and it's all spoken about.
Others farm.
That Rebbe Nachman wrote. They were recording everything. Hazli Chabad is excellent at this also. They record everything. Every printing of Chabad. Look at the end of Tanya. Every printing of Chabad. Which adds a lot. It adds a lot, and it gives a lot of academic credibility because you see that it's many, many first-hand testimony of sourced from many places, many Sfarim all corroborating that this is when it happened, and everyone's cross-referencing. I also was there, I also was there, I also was there, I can give testimony that this person was there. It's very powerful in the transmission when you have a lot of testimony and corroboration. Because of this, we can attain a deeper understanding of the Torah by seeing how the attaining of the Torah is contained within the very way it was revealed. The other way around as well, by studying the Torah itself, we'll achieve part of the fulfillment of that Torah. Number 3, each Torah has a special derech halimud, which is written between the lines of the Torah itself. Every Torah is like its own universe. Like a code hidden inside the Torah, there's a secret with which we will be able to go deeper and understand the Torah in greater depths. Lamaisa, don't make this limit an intellectual pursuit alone. Rather, live the Torah. If Rebbe Nachman's talking about your lungs, which he does a lot in this Torah, you better believe that maybe when somebody that week says to you, do you want to come to like a breathing group? And it's kosher, maybe there was a reason for that. Maybe there's something about your lungs that you should be thinking about. The lungs are very deep. Your heart, we should all be healthy. There's so many things going on here. So anything that comes into the Torah, there's a hidden code here. You guys are literally like opening up like this super code. And it's amazing that in the end of days, Hashem allowed so many great people to literally put it in English words, it's like on a silver platter, like, Mashiach's coming, guys. Like, just get it already, please. Like, no more language barriers. This espresso, open bar here. Just do it. We got you. We got you. This will connect you to the Torah on a much deeper level, an experienced level. The deeper asagas will be revealed. Additionally, look into the history of the Torah, when it was given, and any sichos or maisim, conversations or maisim or actions, stories from Sichos Aran, Shifchei Aran, Chaim Aran. These are all by Rebbe Nachman written down, all about Rebbe Nachman's life, contextually when things were happening, historical parts of the story that will expand your experience of the Torah. Principle 5, Psukim and Ma'amar Chazal. Okay, this is something that's actually pretty straightforward. With every pasuk of Ma'amar Chazal that Rebbeinu brings, whether it's a proof, a mashal, or example, even though Rebbe Nachman brings the pasuk as a specific proof to a specific point, nonetheless there will also be a connection between this pasuk and all other parts of the Torah. If Rebbe Nachman brought a pasuk in the Torah, you better believe that pasuk is connected to every single thing in the Torah. It's all part of Minei Ubei. So if anything comes up in the Torah, it's an essential point. Don't think like, it was probably just like thrown in. You guys ever wrote like an essay for school? You're like, just got to get to 10 pages. Just throw a little something in there. ChatGPT, just throw in something that sounds nice. It has no shaykhs. ChatGPT has no neshama. Sorry to break the news to you. Okay? So when Rebbe Nachman is putting something in, it's intrinsic. It's intrinsic to the mahalach of the Torah. And therefore you could always circle back and see what was this pasuk doing. When he brings you somewhere in Yeshayahu or Amos, you better believe that prophet had something to do with this Torah and the specific derech halimud of this Torah. apart from this, there's also a connection between the whole essence of that pasuk or Ma'amar Chazal to the entirety of all matters within the Torah. That is, when we open up and study that pasuk in its place, we are sometimes able to see the psukim or entire prakim become connected or explained within that Torah. Meaning, if you can learn, you go open up Amos, you get the art scroll, Tanakh translation with all of the English explanations of Amos, and you understand what was happening to Amos or something in Obadiah, and you go into that whole inyan, so then you start illuminating parts of the Torah you're learning in Lekutei Moharan. These psukim may even explain the entire lesson itself in an indirect way. In this way, we'll discover entire sections of the Gemara, pages in the Zohar, or Medrash explained and understood in a miraculous way beyond our logic. You can also go backwards. All of a sudden, you see Rebbe Nachman is explaining what Amos was doing, and you see really what Amos was talking about.
How does he know?
Rebbe Nachman.
Yeah.
He's revealing this great light, that light that was the light of Moshe Rabbeinu, that light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of the Arya Kodesh, of the Baal Shem Tov Kodesh.
He had that light.
He had that light. And he wants to give us that light. The Rebbe brings these psukim, which then become explained and understood in a very deep way, while they themselves are actually explaining the Torah of Rabbi Nachman. Most of the time, which means in a very deep, crazy way, Amos understood there's going to be a Rabbi Nachman, and within the words of the prophet, he's like, if you understand me, I'm going to help you understand what Lekutei Moharan is saying. Most of the time, we're not able to see how each pasuk is related to the entire lesson in such a wondrous way. However, if we learn the pasuk or Ma'amar Chazal in its place with all the surrounding context and understanding, it will open up the big picture for us. We'll be able to begin to see how this single pasuk is connected to the entire Torah in Lekutei Moharan. So, Lamaisa, practically, after the initial stage of learning the roadmap of each Torah, spend adequate time learning through the psukim in Ma'amar Chazal. This would be not going against Minei Obey. This is illuminating Minei Obey. Learn the entire sugya, context, major mafarshim, meaning open up. When Rebbe Nachman many times will start his Torahs with something from Baba Basra, from the Ma'aser in Baba Basra. So go into the Gemara there, see the whole Gemaras. Open up something in Yevamos that Rebbe Nachman brings that Gemara. See Yevamos and the Gemara and the Rashi and the Tosafos, the whole thing, allow it to illuminate you, and all of a sudden you start to see it's like illuminating the Torah itself. This would be a key to opening up a greater perspective and understanding the bigger picture why Rabbeinu used this specific pasuk of mine. Principle 6. There's a principle that governs all of creation. Okay, this is actually a very deep thing. This is something that we speak about a lot, generally in the Shiurim, is that for every existence of Kedusha, there's an opposite force of evil. Gam zeh le'umaseh asa lakim. Based on a verse from King Solomon, Koheles, God made this one opposite the other. The examples that I usually use is like wine. Wine is one of the holiest things. We use it in all holy occasions. But it's the most horrible thing in the world. Alcoholism, it's disgusting. I don't mean disgusting like an alcoholic is, we want to help you.
What's considered an alcoholic? Like, could you have a glass of wine a day? That's an alcoholic.
I grew up with a lot of Russians. They said that you never pour your own vodka. That was one of the rules that they told me. I don't know if that was a klal for all Russians, but I'm saying that many that I grew up with, that you don't pour yourself a cup of vodka. I think what they were indicating by that is saying, I'm not saying this is the gather, but I'm saying that resonates with me, that if you're drinking by yourself, that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just like drinking. Like, why? Why you just like drink cups of vodka? If you're with, socially. Now, I'm not saying that socially is okay either. I would say another thing is if a person starts to have daily, that's also a problem. If someone is also having just with no reason, like there's no, it's not a l'chaim, there's no nothing's happening, he's also drinking, that's a problem. If a person can't go without it, meaning to say he's uncomfortable, these are klalim that are brought down by the therapists and by the psychologists and the addiction therapists. These klalim that I'm saying now, I'm not giving a psak on this, If a person knows somebody who's struggling, they have to go to the appropriate experts. But if you see these signs in someone you know, then there's a problem. Drinking is not good. Even though the same token, it's the holiest thing. So this is a principle that, look what he's about to say, this is so deep, that in everything there's going to be a side of good, there's going to be a side of evil. There's no matter or concept, process or idea that exists on the side of Kedusha that does not have an imitation or forgery on the side of Ra. Rebbe Noach Weinberg, when he would speak about the 5 levels of pleasure, he spoke about how there's also counterfeit versions of pleasure. Like the lowest level of pleasure is just physical pleasures. Physical pleasures. It's nice having a good steak. The counterfeit of that is having steak that's not kosher, overeating that steak, meaning where you're getting the counterfeit, it's the imitation version. We're going to see that really Tov and Ra have to do with either you're eating from the Eitz HaChaim or you're eating from the Eitz HaDas, which is really, the Eitz HaDas is the allure of the Nachash, the snake. So look what he says. Like a monkey which copies the movements of its handler. There's a lot to be said about this. The whole month of Adar, by the way, is connected to the monkey, the koif. In Sefer Yetzir it says that every month has a letter that it corresponds to. What's the month that is like the month of the Jews? The month of the Jews is Nisan. Nisan is the first of the months. Nisan, the whole month you don't say Tachanun. The whole month is like Yom Tov.
Really?
Pesach. Yeah. The whole month.
It's Pesach, right?
Pesach. Some people, there was such a tradition, some people wore a strimal the entire month.
Also Tishrei.
Do it!
I knew you were going to say that.
Also Tishrei, we don't see Tachanun.
Not the whole month. Not the whole month. But for a lot of it.
I wore a
So-
primal on Purim.
That's very nice. So, I'm so happy to hear that. So, the whole month is like Yom Tov. The letter of the month of Nisan is a Hey. Hey is a very good letter. Hey is a good letter. It's part of Hashem's name. Hey is a very good letter. It says that this world is created with the letter Hey.
Wait, why does it start with the base?
Bays is that the whole, we're sitting inside, a bays is like a bayis, we're sitting inside a bayis. But this world Hashem is creating through the letter Hey, and the world to come Hashem is creating through the letter Yud. Because Hashem tzura olamim, Hashem is fashioning the world through Ka. Ka is a Yud and a Hey. So Hey is like the letter. What's the letter of Adar? Is a Kuf. Kuf is the same letter as a Kof. Same word as monkey. Because the kof, a monkey, is trying to imitate a human being. He's like trying to imitate. The kuf, same letter, same thing. The kuf, you know what a kuf is? It's like a funny hay. It's like a hay that has like a tail. It's like, it's like he couldn't hide the fact, like a monkey, like he couldn't hide the fact he's got a tail. The kuf is like trying to imitate the hay, but like it's like, he's like, we caught you, like. That's why the month of Adar is like a funny month. It's an interesting month. You got to be careful in Adar. It's either the biggest month, or it's either a kuf is a big letter. A kuf is either kadosh or it's a koif. It can go either way. So everything has zelu mazeh. For example, just like there's a concept of humility. Humility is a good thing. Moshe Rabbeinu is onav mikol adam. It's basically the greatest trait that we want to acquire. There's also a type of puzzle of invalid humility, which comes from despair, weakness of mind. The person's like, he's humble, but it wasn't from a healthy place. It's like, I'm nothing. So they might present, they might present similar, or it's fake humility, like a person just like walking around like pretending to like be all like humble. But it's all that, everyone should say, like, look how humble that guy is. He's like fishing for everyone to say, like, wow, he's so humble. That's puzzle. Similarly, just like there's emunah, there's also false emunah. Now look at this. According to this, when we learn the words of Rabbeinu regarding one of the sides, we can conclude that the same thing exists on the other side as well. For example, when we learn about the holy powers of Teichacha, rebuke, and Chaysim mitzad kedusha, the seal of Kedusha, we can conclude that there's also unholy rebuke. Sometimes that's like, Baal Tshuva rebuke. Like, I'm not a rabbi, but I think that that's like usher, bro. Yeah. I don't know, but like, I think you got to come to Shachris. Bro, you went to Shachris one day. You never come to Shachris. You're like Mr. Shachris now. You're like telling everybody, oh, you don't go to Shachari. Well, you don't do. One day you went, and now you're Mr. Shachris or something. So that there's this holy rebuke, and then there's unholy rebuke. Look at this. There's also a seal of Kedusha. There's a seal, like a chotem, like the seal, like a... We can conclude that there's also a chaysim, a seal of the sitra achra, of the dark side. And vice versa. If we see that Rebbeinu is talking about a concept which is tameh, impure, we can conclude that there's certainly a true and good source on the side of Kedusha, to which tameh concept is just a forgery or imitation dangling on the side of Tumah. This rule speaks to both concepts and processes. For example, he gives a very good example. Torah Zion, Rebbeinu speaks about Eitzah, getting advice from the tzaddikim, and in contrast, he says there's also people who get advice from the snake. Getting advice from a tzaddik is a good thing, which must be that if there's such a thing called advice from the tzaddik, there must be that there's a concept of someone taking advice from the dark side.
It's like that inner voice in your head.
See, it's a her, no?
That's right. Or people that are giving bad advice. Accepting the advice of the tzaddik is considered to be and he goes on, by the way. Accepting the advice of the tzaddik is considered a type of holy marriage, an intimate relationship. When I'm taking advice from a holy person, I'm becoming like intimately connected to them. It's almost like a marriage, if you will. It's not actually a marriage. I mean, the tzaddik is married to his wife, and it's not you. But conceptually, you're like wedded together through that good advice. Right? That's a very chashuv thing. There's an intimate connection that happens when I seek the advice of somebody and I take that advice and it's coming from a holy source and it bonds me in a good way. So conversely though, if advice from the tzaddik is becoming intimately wed to that tzaddik and intimately connected to that tzaddik, then if I take advice from the dark side, then it's becoming, God forbid, intimately wed, like a marriage with the dark side. It's not easy to get out of a marriage. So that's what it means. If a person's taking bad advice, that's why I talk about music a lot. Music is so influential. If you're listening to music from not good sources, you're getting intimately wed to those sources. That's not good. You got to be very careful with these things. Yeah.
Just to push back on that.
Push.
When you're listening to music, you're not necessarily taking advice. You're just...
That's what you think.
That's subconscious.
When you listen to music, you're so vulnerable.
It's straight subconscious.
It goes right in, and you just kind of live with like these things. It's because it gets your body moving. It goes in. You start saying things. I remember, back in the day, there used to be a show called Seinfeld.
Oh.
Okay, it was a pretty popular show, I think. So, if you watch enough episodes of that, you're taking advice from them on how to live life. I mean, so much of it is just, they're going through life and all sorts of, bits and all of a sudden a situation comes up in your life, like a stressful situation, and you like respond like Kramer. Like, why'd you do that? Why are you taking his advice? Like, that was the way to respond in that. So no, I'm just like messing around. Are you? You become wed to those ideas and they're in there. They're in there. You became intimately connected to that advice. That was the way to respond to a certain stressful situation or whatever. It goes in. Things go. When you open yourself up to entertainment and things like that, you're seeking advice. You're seeking something from them. I think that it's just, no, I'm just chilling out, You're receiving something. So to be very careful. So look what it says. The same process necessarily happens when we choose to take the advice of the Nachash. We become married and intimate with that evil force, God forbid. When we use this klal, we may not see that the opposing aspects right away, and may not realize how we can relate to it or why it is important. Nevertheless, we should know and rely on this klal to understand that every coin has a flip side. It has to be emphasized that we go deeper into the Torah, we'll see this rule unfold, and be able to understand the message that Rebbe Nachman has encoded within the lesson as to the benefit or danger of the opposite path. So Lamaisa, practically, what do? When we're in the later stages of learning the Torah, this is not necessarily part one. This is, you have to understand the flow of the Torah. If he speaks about one of the sides, the side of Kedusha, or the other side, what should we do? In our minds, follow the path that Rebbe Nachman is creating in the opposite way. Meaning, if Rebbe Nachman is talking about the Lahoidus Lahalo, to God, to have appreciation for God, and that's a good thing, that's holy. What does it mean to have appreciation for the other side? What would that look like? And if appreciation for God is the pleasures of the world to come, then let me extend that. What would it look like on the other side if I'm having appreciation for the dark forces? Well, what's the opposite of the pleasure of the world to come?
Start him in the house.
Yeah, start in the house. So, you start being able to see the entire Torah unfold like in two ways. If something's on the side of holiness, what would this entire Torah look like if I just flip it? He's not writing that, but it's implicit, is that I can now see the entire Torah unfolding in this other way. What would happen if we took the advice of the Nachash rather than the advice of the Tzaddik? Everything that Rebbe Nachman says about the advice of the Tzaddik and all the good that would come from that, let me follow every step in that journey that he created, and let me just adjust that and course correct it to what would that look like on the other side.
What looks like other religions often.
Let's say you'd have to go through each step and see, whoa, how would that really affect me if I were to see this Torah flipped? And that then strengthens the opposite side of the side of Kedusha, and the side of goodness. So we are deep now in these principles. This is literally creating framework that when we're going into the Torahs, you're going to see these Torahs in wondrous ways. Do Chazara on this. Next week we're going to finish these principles, and we're going to go back into the Torah, and we're going to see this in a totally new light. We should be Zaycha Mamish to receive the Or that we are being guided towards receiving, and B'siyata D'Shmaya to be great, and to bring B'siyata D'Shmaya, this light, to the whole world, that everyone should have goodness and happiness and blessing and connection, and we should feel deeply, deeply connected to one another in the Achdus HaPashat through the Pe'ulus Mishtanas. We should be Zaycha once and for all this week. The Yurtzar of Nasan, to be connected to that Or, to the Or of the Torah, to the Or of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Or of the Chamisha Yechidei HaDoros. We should be Zaycha once and for all to Mashiach, who's going to be the great light, the Ner LeMashiach, that great light that's going to shine from one end of the world to the other. The Or HaGanos, the hidden light, is going to become revealed once and for all. That light that's within us, that all our loved ones will be able to share in the light that is us. And this is the greatest thing you could do for your wives to be, and your wives currently, is that the more you reveal your light, it's like a gift that you could share that light. The more of a panemius person you are, the more that you can share that light with those around you. We should be zoned to this. That Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'mhir of Yameinu. Amen. Amen. Oh, Yahweh Sheinu Matogeinu Manayim Goran. Did-it-a-la-la, Yahweh Sheinu Matogeinu. Oh, Yumanayim Goran. Did it la 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 ya Sheinu Matogeinu Hayom Manayim Gagaleinu ya la 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 did it la la ya la 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 Shachris, Shkoyach.